Chapter 60. A Different Path. Nora doubled over from the shock of the sound until Mr. Curry and Pop rushed to her side and took her hand. "Quickly, my room," I said, and pointed wildly to my open doorway. They rushed inside and shut the door quietly. 3 sharp knocks came again. It was Annika, who shook herself, who looked up at Luca and cupped his cheek in her hand and nodded once, and then walked to the front door. 2 more sharp knocks before she got there and swung it open to reveal Officer Penny McNeil standing there in her blue uniform, which looked a little more creased and wilted than it had been when we'd seen her at the start of the day. Even her tightly bobby-pinned bun had wisps of red hair escaping at the neck. Annika stepped aside and Penny came into the house. The sound of her leather shoes squeaked and her dusty belt jangled as she looked around the room at each of us, frowning. Sorry, folks. Have I interrupted something?" she asked. I held my breath, and I figured Sam and Annika did too. All of us waited for Luca to say something, because it felt just then like we were standing and looking at 2 different paths, and Luca was the one who'd have to choose which we took. "You've just caught us in the middle of a big decision, Penny," Luca said, and I felt the colour drain from my face. I wanted to run over to him, throw my arms around his middle and beg him to please, please, please not tell her about Nora. Beg him to save her, choose the better way. But I was steady and unmoving as a mountain. "Oh," Penny said, quirking one eyebrow and smiling nervously at all of us. "How's that?" Annika slammed the door shut, which made me and Sam jump. Then she strode back into the kitchen, went to stand beside Luca and crossed her arms while smiling tightly at Penny and flicking her eyes to us.
"We're in the middle of a grounding,"
she said.
"These 2 were late home from school, trying to get in on some excitement happening around the town this afternoon."
Annika glared at us, and Sam and I bowed our heads, doing our part. "You happen to know anything about that?" Luca asked, and I looked back up. "Would that be why you're still in uniform, when your shifts ended hours ago?" Penny's face finally broke into a real weary smile, and she nodded. Her shoulders seemed to sag, and it was just the signal she needed to come deeper into the kitchen and pull out one of the bench stools and take a seat. "You would be correct, old man," she said, and Luca pulled out another stool and sat beside her.
"Tea?"
Annika asked, and Penny thanked her as she started making up mugs. "There's been a breakout at the Haven," Penny said. "Some 9 months pregnant woman went into town yesterday afternoon and she hasn't been seen since." "Pregnant?" Luca said. "Can't imagine she's gone far then."
9 months? It's hard to even walk in that condition."
Annika added, her words coming out hard, and then Penny seemed to remember us. Me and Sam standing still as mountains between the lounge room and kitchen, and she raised her eyebrows at us. Luca looked over his shoulder at Sam and me, and then gently tipped his head towards the kitchen table. "This is what you 2 were so interested in being grounded for. You may as well hear," he said. Penny opened her mouth like she was about to protest, but Luca continued. "It'll probably be all over the evening news anyway, but you both know not to repeat what's said in this room, understand?" Sam and I nodded, and we sat side by side at the table and listened as Penny continued. "Well, she's not the first of them to flee a haven. Apparently dozens around the country have been broken out, suspected to be hidden by civilians." "That's so?" Penny nodded, and she looked over at Sam and me. "Your little friend said they might have seen her hopping over the 787. I held my breath until Penny shook her head. "But that was a bust. We've had no other sightings." I could feel Sam exhale beside me. "So I thought I'd come here and see if you had any ideas about who it is we should start looking at," Penny said, turning back to Luca. Sam started jiggling his leg under the table, and then pushed his slipping glasses roughly back up his nose. I gently pressed my knee against his to get him to stop fidgeting. When Luca looked confused, Penny went on. "We figure it's one of the volunteers, right? Who do you think would be most likely to have helped her out?" Luca ran a hand over his face and then looked at Penny and smiled a bit. "You're going to think I'm a bit paranoid, but one of the little old ladies there?" I sucked in a breath. But Penny didn't seem to notice, as the kettle came to a boil and Annika poured water into 2 mugs before her. "I think her name was Dorothy or Dorothea or something like that. She's a Portsea local, part of some Grandmothers for Refugee Children grassroots organisation, and honestly, yeah, I'd start with her." "Really?" Penny said, and Luca nodded. "Oh yeah. Her name will be with the Red Cross. She volunteered nearly every day, and I imagine she grew very close to most everyone." Penny stayed and drank her tea, then thanked Luca for the tip-off and headed out. I tried smiling at her as she waved goodbye, but my guts felt like they were about to heave out. "How could you do that to Dorothea?" I said, turning on Luca. He put his hands in the air. Trust me, I know. But we also know she has nothing to hide, which is exactly what Penny will find, and then she'll be right back at the start again with no leads. Smart, Sam said. Thank you, Samuel. I am a police officer. I know how we think. As soon as we heard Penny's car pull out of our driveway, my bedroom's door swung open. Pop, Nora, and Mr. Curry emerged, looking a little more frazzled than before. You get all that? And it was Pop and Mr. Curry who nodded, after which Luke added, So I guess we're doing this. Thank you. Nora's voice came out strong and steady, and she touched her belly as she looked to Luca and then Annika. Thank you,
What is the plan?
Annika asked.
I mean, if we managed to not get caught, what's the plan for Nora having the baby? And after?
Mr. Curry spoke up. Call an ambulance when the time comes, but someone must stay with her at all times, in case the officials... I might make me sign away, Nora interrupted, and Mr. Curry nodded. You know they will. They did it to Merjame and her father. That poor girl. Mr. Curry shook his head. I know someone at the papers. I'll call them and make sure they come. If we make a big song and dance about a mother and her baby being turned away and made to go back... You're hoping to turn the tide of public opinion? Luca said. It worked before, didn't it? To bring them here in the first place, Mr. Curry replied. You're basing this rescue on a lot of long shots and slim chances.
And what happens if we do nothing, though?
Annika said, coming back to stand in front of Luca.
What happens to the baby if Nora's made to go back?
He shook his head. This isn't a do-over, Annika. This isn't...
But what if it was us? What would we do in her situation?
Luca leant down, pressed his forehead against Annika's so the two of them looked like they were sharing one breath. And then, so quietly, we heard Luca as he said, All right. All right.